In today's video, I'm going to run through how you can use the Divi Page Builder for WordPress, which is a part of the Divi theme. We're going to run through basically how you can build a page and exactly more or less the ins and outs of the builder, touching on a few main concepts and pieces so you can figure out exactly how to use it and then learn from there to get the designs and pages that you want built for your WordPress website. So let's get stuck into it. So you're in WordPress, and I've got the Divi theme installed and activated here. Now this is part of a larger series, so if you do need to go back or just check out the playlist in the link below, and there's a whole bunch of areas there you can go through. But once you've got the Divi theme installed, basically and activated, we're good to go. So we're going to go up the top here to add a new page. Now also, if you're editing existing pages, I have a video doing basic edits on that, but this will probably cover a lot of that and more anyway. So we've got a new page here, and it wants us to build layout using Divi. Now, your page may not look exactly like this in terms of fonts because this is actually a test site we've already started working with. But essentially, I'm going to call this one Builder Tutorial just for the video. We're not actually going to be too caught up on what type of content goes on this page as much as assessing the layout. And I'm going to save this draft, so we're going to save the name of the page. I'm going to use Divi Builder. And we're going to get met with this here, which means that we're going to have a look at some of this. We can start from scratch, but just before you start, I want to touch on some of these other areas. If you have existing pages on your website, you can go in and actually clone one of those pages, or you can choose a pre-made layout, which I'll just have a look at very quickly. If you open this up, you'll see there's a bunch of layouts already existing that you can open up and edit. Some of them easy, some of them not so easy, but overall, if you find something you like here, there's nothing stopping you from opening one of these up and editing it to get the look you want. And Divi continually adds to these, so there's a whole range of them to choose from. But in this video, we're going to start from scratch, which if I close this is essentially where we land with starting from scratch. Now the first thing I want to touch at is sections. And there's a bit of I'm going to just sort of cover the layout quickly. At the moment, this blue area here, with the blue frame, is a section, and it's a standard section. If I hit plus down here, I can add more, and there's a section here like a regular section, a specialty section, or a full width section. And of course, if I have any sections saved in my library, I can add those in. So these are things that I have pre-designed that I can add in there. We'll touch on that later. But we've got one regular section there, and this is essentially, if I back out of that for a minute, I can add in various rows in here. So if I click this green button, I can click in a row with one column, and we'll just insert, I'll touch on this again soon, insert a text module, just tick on out of that, and you can see that this is a green box, and I can do the same again where I add another row, this time with 3 columns. And you can see we've got the little lines here. If I close out of that, we've got 3 columns that we can add modules into. So that's essentially how most of this is going to work. We've got a blue section, section's actually called a section, sorry. We've got a blue area here called a section, and this little panel is where the options are. And that blue section houses rows which actually have individual columns. So this green section is one row area with one column within it. And this green section is another area with 3 columns within it. And that's how you can start to build pages. And the beauty of that is, if I have one section here that has a white background, I can go in and add another section here. I can give it a different column structure. They don't have to be even columns, something like this narrower column and this wider column. Once again, I'm going to add in just some text. Just tick out of that for now. And I can go into the section settings, and I can change the background to a different color. I can make it blue if I want to, and we can then adjust our design settings later on so we have different sections that look different throughout the page. And that's how you can sort of get that look where you got like rows of information in different areas designed to grab attention like that. So now to touch on a little bit more, I'm going to delete this section. So the way this works, the blue area, this little icon here, if I drag that, I can move it and reorder it. If we had more sections, I could actually swap these around. This cog area brings up the settings, which is where most of the settings are for the module. And we won't touch on every single one of these because there is a lot of settings here, but we will get down to that very soon. And we can actually duplicate here to duplicate this whole section. And you see if I hover over it, I get this section again with the blue border around it. I'm just going to hit the bin button, which is another one. Hitting this little trash can icon will delete that section. This button here will allow me to save it. So if I've designed something I want to reuse and change in the future, I can save this section to the library, give it a name, such as test section. So maybe it's something I want to reproduce. And if I save it just like this, next time I import it, I can just change it and it'll be unique. However, if I make this a global item by ticking this here, every time I add it to another page, I can add it to 10 pages throughout the website. If I change any one of those pages, like that particular section, then it'll actually update across the whole website. So if I have something at the very bottom of every page that I've saved as a global section and put on 10, 100 pages, whatever, all I need is to update it once and the whole website gets updated across the board. But if I don't want that, I simply turn that off. Or you can insert it and turn off the global option as well. So I'm just going to close out of that. This final one with the 3 dots allows you to sort of see some of these again, such as save to library. You can split test, you can copy section, or you can copy the styles from the section. Just a few areas that you can touch on. So few options. Now that's a basic section. That's how that works. And we've got our rows within that, and we add in modules. So if I click here in this gray section, these are all the modules available to us. So you can have like an accordion, an audio file, a little blog area which shows your latest blog posts. There's a whole bunch of modules. I do have a video which goes through all of these modules if you wanted to have a look at them, but you get the idea. Contact form, countdown timer. The main ones you're probably going to want are image, so I'll add an image in here, and we'll just pick one from our media library, which you can also upload from here if you want to. Let's just pop this image in here. We can add another module. So we've got image, and now we can go in and add all sorts of things in here, sliders, pricing tables, a shop if you have a WooCommerce shop. I'm going to add in a text area. So we can add in some text in here. We can simply copy that, add in some text. And on this third column, I'll add in something else. You can see here we have a button. So if I want to create some kind of call to action on the website, I can actually use a button. However, there is a call to action module. So if I click on that, I can say sign up for our newsletter and link off to another page. The button can say, sign up. If I move this over, you can see here, it's actually quite hard to read at the moment and the button isn't appearing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down to background down here and just turn that background color off. And now we've got white text on a white background. So if I go to design up the top here, where it says text, I can change the text color from light to dark and we get our section. So I go back up the top here to content, because these tabs, most of your content will be in the actual content tab, so where you'll put the information and the bits and pieces, whereas design is all about changing the look, and advanced is, well, advanced. And we are going to touch on that later as well. So the reason we don't have a button is because the button link URL is blank. I can pop the address to Google in there if I want to. And now our button is there, which has been predetermined in our last video about setting up the website template. And I can then, of course, scroll back up to our text area. Let's say, receive exclusive offers or something like that. So we have this nice little call to action, some text and an image. And like I said, if I decide to, I can go back over here. I can go down to the background, and maybe I decide I want to use a background color. So now we have this green background, and I can click on this and even make it semi-transparent if I want to, so it's just showing up. And you sort of get the idea. So now you can see it's starting to take place, how it works. Now these buttons here on the blue that we went through before are the same on the green. We've got the cog to settings. We can move this up and down if we want to and change the order. And we've got most of the same buttons, except we have a column structure here. So we can at any point change the column structure here. And if I want to, I can change the column order by going into this green panel with the settings, and I can take these columns here and I can switch and move them around. I can even delete columns and add in new ones. I can add a new column and have 4 columns. And I'll just head back. and you sort of just click the bin icon there. So you get the idea. You can actually change the columns around quite easily. So essentially, we've kind of got, we're drilling down to the module. So we've got a section here, this big blue section. We've got our column sections, and within those columns we have modules. This is a text module. I can click on my gray cog and edit, and same with this image module. You'll see it's color coded. So blue to that green color to gray. Modules have a gray area, the same buttons and features as before, where I click on the cog to change the information. Now, the one time you will see something that looks different is when you create a global item, like I mentioned before. So if I actually say, I'll change this text to, this is global text, and just try and fill it out with something like this, just to demonstrate. Now, I am moving a bit quick, but just sort of trying to get things together to explain the key points with you, and we're going to go back and touch on anything. So once you've got this section here, if I want this to be global, like a bit of information I want to produce elsewhere on the website and have it all link up and updated easily, I add to the library with this button here, make a global item, and I say global text module text, or whatever you want to call it, and save that. And this will apply whether you make a section global, columns, it'll always have that lime green color. And so you'll have to pay attention to the position of the actual little panel that pops up in order to know what that is. So we've got our section here, we've got our columns, we've got our modules. Now, if I actually add another section, you'll see we have specialty and full width. So I'm actually going to go over to full width. And you see we've got less modules, but they're all called full width modules. So if I actually go in and say create a full width header, I can say this is our page, and I'm just going to scroll down. You see we've got some text, kind of like our call to action up here, except this is a full width section. So I can go in and I can say, you know, sign up here. I can even add a second button here if I want to, learn more. I can add in this subtitle area here. It's like we are creating this page in Divi, and then of course we've got more information here just under that. So we need no info here. Now this is very hard to read again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the background. So I'm going to scroll down to background. So you'll find in pretty much all of these sections you get your content right at the top, which is where your information goes, and same with these modules up here, where most of the important information goes is under the content area. I can add images into this particular module, such as a logo image, which I've got this pivot logo I created in the last video. Well, not that I created it in the video, but so I've added a little image in there, and I'm going to go to the background color, and I'm actually going to make it say black, so we can actually see what we're looking at. But what we can do also under the background colors is add things like gradients. So I click add a gradient. You see we've got two colors here. So I can choose this green, I can make it black, and I can choose this blue, choose that lime green, maybe darken it a bit, but I can also grab this right slider over here and make it semi-transparent. Now I'm going to come back to that in a minute, because obviously we have a few options here, such as a linear gradient. We can also choose a radial gradient, so we have everything in a circle in the middle, and we can change the position that the colors start and stop, so we can get really sharp edges on our gradient. And you just have a few basic options there you can play with. Now here's the option I want to come back to, which is place gradient above background image. If I scroll up a little bit, I've got this image tab over here. I click add background image. I'm going to choose something fairly simple, such as these leaves, and click upload image. Okay, so you can see we have our image there, and it's actually become very difficult to read because of all of the high contrast and very detailed areas of the image. It's hard to read that area. So if I head back to the gradient where I have my semi-transparent green and place the image above, the gradient above the image, then the gradient literally sits over the top of the image. Whoops, let's just undock that. And we get this effect here like this. I'm actually going to, for the sake of this video, go to images, and you can see I've got this logo here. I'm going to bin that. But that is essentially a full width module, and you'll see this one is purple because it's a full width module, and there's no columns because essentially the full width module is meant to be particular modules that take up the full width of the page. Whereas even this section here, it can be designed and styled to be full width. It actually tends to tuck things in to the maximum width of the content area of the website. And full width is designed to try and create elements that are designed to be more full width in nature and go the full width of the site. Once again, I can grab this section and move it up to the top. So we have a full width section and just a standard section with our modules and columns within it. Next thing I'm going to do is add a specialty section, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I will quickly explain it. A specialty section. You see we have these quite confusing looking layouts here. So the way it works is we have one column and then another column which we can put sub-columns within. So if I choose this second option here and I create a new row, say 2 columns, I'm going to add in some images to demonstrate how this works. We'll choose this one. Okay. So you see here, we've got one column over here. If I choose another image, and I'm just going to make this a slightly different color so it's easier to stand out. And you see, so we got like one big column and 2 little columns, but that's not where it ends, because if I add another image in here, we've got our 3 columns now, 1 wide, 2 small. But you see that I can add in another column section over here to the right. So if I click on that, I can add in 3 columns. And then I can do the same thing again, where I'm going to speed ahead here. And you can see I can keep adding columns. I can add a single column again, and I can choose an image again. So you can see we actually can add different column structures within one column off to the side. So that's what a specialty section is. I can't actually add more columns onto this left side because of the way it's set up. So every time I add a specialty section, I can choose one column to be a solid single column, and the other column, depending on how it's structured, can be changed around, and you have different various column sort of setups within that. And you can see here, if I add a specialty column, you've got everything that's orange is static, and the green areas you can have 1 to 3 columns. So that can be handy if you've got more complex designs you want to build, and it's actually it's pretty useful. I don't personally use it a lot, and I think most people don't tend to either, but it is there if you need it. So I'm going to, and you can see that it's orange. So we've actually put in a full width column here, a standard section, sorry, a full width section here, a standard section with a single column and 3 columns, and then a specialty section here. You'll see it's orange, blue, and orange, blue, and purple. And it's important to note that, because what we can do, if this is starting to get too confusing to go through, is I can go here down to this little layers button and click on that. And you'll see we have a purple section, a blue section, and an orange section. Because they're color coded, every normal section, just standard section, is that blue color. I can click this little arrow and we have our rows with our columns here. So if we need to go somewhere in particular, I can go down and pick this column and it'll take me to it. So if you're ever getting lost on a page, you can go through and find the section you need in this little layers window down here. You can even search if you have a name for something, and we can close that down. However, there's also more to it than that. Down the bottom left here, there are various display options we can use so that we know where we're going. The first thing I'm going to do is, if you want to design, you can see what your design looks like on a tablet-sized viewport like this, or a phone. So that is very handy for designing for mobile or smartphones. And of course, we can zoom in and out. So zoom in and zoom out. So we have like our full desktop view, and this is the desktop view here. But if we want to see the whole page and zoom out, we can also do that and see everything. But the one thing I wanted to show you, which is similar to this layer view, is this one on the far left. As you can see, we have our full width section with the purple header, and then our full width header module within that. Our blue section, and you can see a little bit of white here, it has our columns, so our single row, single column, and our another row with the 3 columns, and then our specialty section with the various columns within it as well. So these are ways that you can more easily find the areas of your site. You can see the panels have the exact same buttons. So if I want to change this full width header, I can click on the cog and I get all of the same options. We can't see what's happening here, but we can make changes and save them and go back to desktop view to see how it looks. So that's just to give you a little bit of an insight into the interface. If you're looking to learn how to actually explore these pages more easily, you have these options down here. Also have a few other options here, but I'm not too concerned. They're a bit more advanced. I personally don't use them too often. And then of course this here to explore those sections. So that's how you can understand the layout of the page quite easily. It's pretty handy. Now, while we're talking about the interface itself, you'll notice down here, if I hit this button, when you're editing, this is what you're going to see is this purple dot. I click on that to expand it and bring out all these options. I click on it to hide it. So once again, coming across, I can add a layout here. So if I've built from scratch and then I decide I want to add a layout, I can click this plus button and I can choose a layout like we mentioned before, or clone an existing page, or even a saved layout if I have anything saved that I want to add onto the page. So that's pretty handy if you have layouts there you want to use. So I'm going to close out of that. And then of course the second button, instead of adding layout, you can save the layout of the page. So that way if you decide that you want to actually put this layout on a different page, you can say, oh, yeah, this page 1, whatever you want to call it. And then you can go back to that other page, get to this plus symbol and add it from your saved layouts. So that's pretty handy as well. And the bin icon will clear the layout completely. So if I click that, it'll delete the entire layout and we'll basically have to start again. And then across over here, we have some page settings. If I click this cog, things like the page title, an excerpt, if you want to add a featured image, these are your basic WordPress options. And you can add background, content area, background colors and things like that. And sort of just the split testing, I wouldn't be too concerned with. Maybe something for another video. But you can go through and change some basic options for the page if you want to, and make them more specific to that page. And then you've got, I believe, revision editing history, so you can go back and see if you've made any alterations. You can go back and move back to here if you want to. I'll go back and you can see things disappearing because I'm going back and turning them off. If you've ever used Photoshop, it's kind of like the history column in Photoshop. And then there's global history states, which, you know, I think you can add in states, but I'm not too concerned about that right now either. So we're going to X out of that. And this final one is if you want to export the layout and save it to your computer. And then, of course, if you want to send that layout to someone, you can send them the file. They can open up the builder, go to import, and upload a file with your layout. And they can upload a file with your layout. So that means that you can quite easily take control and make things portable and more easily send people layouts to put onto their website. So if someone has a Divi website, you can design a layout for them and send it to them. They can even send you their customizer settings and things like that. So it's pretty handy and pretty easy to move things between computers and websites online. And of course, finally, at the moment, this is not just a draft, so I'm going to click Save Draft. And like any WordPress page, you can go into your dashboard, into your pages, find that draft to open later, and edit with the Divi Builder. And of course, if you're also ready, you can hit Publish and publish the page and make it live. And this website is just a test website, so it's not actually live, so I'm just going to publish it for the sake of the video. And this now changes to a Save button, so at any point I can save. And of course, if I choose to exit prematurely, although I just saved it, so it's not going to do it. But yeah, you can exit and see the page, and at any time go back and enable the Visual Builder from the page itself. But if you do go to exit, it will ask you if you want to save changes or discard those changes. So it's pretty handy. Now, moving on, well, you might notice that happens a bit too. Sometimes pages load twice when you go to edit them. Not sure why that is. So you've got the idea of how the layout works. So now we're going to move more into sort of the more specifics of each area. Now these sections generally will have some settings. So if I go to this section with the cog here, I can actually add a link. So if I click anywhere in the section, it takes someone somewhere. Generally that's not a great idea. I think it's a little bit confusing, but it could work in certain scenarios. Otherwise, you've got your background settings here. So as we did before with that header, I can add in a color, a gradient, image, or even a video if you want to upload an MP4 file. But I want to touch on the background image a little bit. So if I scroll down and add this background image, I'm going to choose something pretty light. I don't have anything too light, so let's just go with this little pattern here. This is going to not look very good, but for the sake of the video, it's going to be okay. Now, there's a few options here to explore that I do want to touch on, because when you're designing a layout, the background image in certain sections is a pretty big, has a pretty big impact on the style and look of your page. The first one is, if I scroll up and down, it's just static, but I can choose this parallax effect. And if I scroll up and down, it sort of moves at a different rate to the rest of the page. And that's called true parallax. If I change it to CSS, it just stays static and the page moves past it. So you can play with some of those effects, but it does remove all of the options after it. So we're going to turn it off. Now, the background image size. Now, it's pretty self-explanatory, but it's still good to touch on the terms. Cover means that the image will be blown up to cover the entire area. So that means if the image is proportionally taller than this area, you're going to get some cropping at the top or bottom or both of the image. Or if I hit fit, it fits the entire image and displays the entire image regardless. So this means that it'll actually have areas either side, or if it's like a thinner image, like basically around the outside of the image is just going to be, the image isn't going to show, unless of course we put it on repeat down here. So that's what cover and fit means, and actual size will just display the image in its native resolution. So if you want it to be pixel perfect, you can also do that. And you'll notice here under background image repeat, I'm going to skip past the position for a sec. You can have a few different options there. It's good to test these. You've got no repeat or just simply repeat. It'll just repeat in whatever the default setting is. I can also make it, whoops, ahead of myself here, horizontal repeat, which is essentially what it's doing right now. Because when it's on repeat, essentially it will go it will repeat above and below and left and right. But I keep clicking the wrong drop down. But if it's on horizontal, it won't repeat above and below, only horizontally. And if I want to repeat vertically, you'll see it doesn't actually repeat either side. It only repeats above and below the image. So depending on what you're designing is how that'll work. And then round, it sort of does a little bit of both. You can see it's a little bit all over the place. Round's a bit funny, but I can simply put this on no repeat so we can sort of dart back and just touch on this background image position. Now this position affects all these modes. So at the moment it's on center, which means it just gets the center of the image and that's what it works from. But I can also choose top left. So it will take the top left of the image and sort of bring it out from there. Or if I choose bottom left over here, it'll actually go to the bottom left of the image and it will go out that way. And if I actually change it to cover, it still has the very bottom left corner of the image. Or if I choose the top left, I should say, you'll actually choose the very top left of the image. And the same for the other areas. So bottom center just means it'll actually align to the bottom center of the image. Center will be the absolute center of the image, and center top will be the top of the image in the middle. So you can change the positioning of the image and how the behavior works from there. And then finally, there's a background image blend with some sort of filters, depending on what you have set in the background. So if I choose a background color with this blue, for instance, so I've just added a background color in here, and I go back to the image over there. Under the image blend, I can change it to multiply. So if you have a black and white image, you can choose a color for the background and it'll just sort of multiply. That's one example of how that works, but there's other ways. Overlay, you got all these different filters you can choose to actually change the way the image sits on the background. So that's playing with the background area. That will be on, it's basically in every single area of Divi. If I actually just close this down, that was in the background of this section. I can also go into the green section here. I can go to background, do the same again. I can go into this section here. I can even go into individual columns by clicking the cog and choosing a different background for this column. You can essentially play and customize the background on almost anything. Even this text module over here, you can go to background, pick an image, and make the website pretty much unusable at this stage. But that is a demonstration of how you can change the background images and background colors or settings on any row, section, module, or anything in the Divi Builder by going to the settings and under content, playing with those background settings. So it's pretty powerful what you can do with it. So we're just going to actually click here. I'm going to go back a bunch of states here. Just return that back to normal. So now we're going to actually touch on text a little bit. If I go into this section here, this is a global section, so I'm actually going to go over here. The global section will take longer to save and therefore slow down the video. If I put a title in here, keeping in mind that things like call to actions and other modules have dedicated title areas you can type into. But if I add a title in here and highlight that, you see we've got some of the options that were available in the WordPress Classic editor. I can make it a heading 1, heading 2, and it sort of styles as a heading. And of course you get your bold, italics, we can make these dot points or numbered points. We can add links. If I highlight here, I can add a link to somewhere quite easily, and you can change the alignment left to right, that sort of thing. You can indent. You've got a few options there. I'm going to take that back, including emojis, so we can add in emojis if we want to. And of course you've got undo and all the usual things. So I can even change the color of this text here. So you can type as you would normally would in the WordPress Classic editor, all in this box here. They haven't got the block editor style in here, so it's not quite perfect, but it's pretty good. Now, what I want to touch on as well is if I go here to design, the design tab over here, this is where you can change all of the design options for basically the area that you're editing. So it has text and heading text here. If we were to choose a section, you probably wouldn't have these text options there because it's not, the text is more directly controlled by the module. So if I click on text, we've got some options. I can choose the font weight, and this is sort of across the board. If I want to, I can make the text size bigger. So you can see the text size here is bigger. I can change the line height, although because it's actually dot points, I need to change that and go to dot points up here and change the unordered list line height. And you got all these settings here, capitals, and you can just go through and see it's pretty straightforward. You got your fonts. This is how you can change the color of your links. You click the link here, change those settings. Wherever I click here, the options for that pop up below. Standard text, styling your links, dot points, numbered points, and of course your block quote font. So that's for standard text styling. And then of course you can change the text color from light to dark, or you can even give it a drop shadow. So there's a little drop shadow here. Or you can actually go to this text color here and choose red, or pick a color from there. I've just clicked out when I didn't mean to, so back to design. And then of course you've got heading text. So at the moment, this is a heading 2. So I click the heading 2 tab, I can go down here and blow that size right up if I want to. I can choose a different style of drop shadow, and I can even play with the drop shadow a little bit by choosing a color. So you get this green here, you can change the positioning. So you see there's a whole bunch of settings here to style your text. I'm not going to go through all of it, but if you actually go in there, have a bit of a play, you'll see exactly what it does. Sizing is, now we're starting to get a little bit different because now it changes the text module width, so I can make the width of the text module itself narrower. Same with the maximum width, so if I change this width, it will scale down as I change the page size, but the max width will only set the maximum width it can go to, which it could even be 500 pixels if you want to. You can type it in, and I keep hitting enter, so we'll go back. So that's sizing, and you can change the alignment of the module from left to center to right. You probably find, unless you're really trying to take full control over the layout to the smallest degree, this section isn't going to be too much use. And the more you start customizing these settings, the less it's going to be responsive straight off the bat. But that's okay. Sizing and then spacing, you can add things like a margin at the top, so some spacing above the module, 100 pixels. Now I have a 100 pixel space at the top. If I add padding, it adds it within the module. So I don't know if I might do it here to explain it. So we've got our call to action here. I go to design and spacing. If I add a 100 pixel margin at the top, there's a 100 pixel margin above the area. But if I remove that and add it to padding, it actually sits inside the box. So that's the difference. Margin is on the outside, padding is on the inside. And I can go down to border. I can add a border, change the color, and you get the idea. Add a shadow to the whole thing. So you've got all of these styling options in the design tab to get this looking the way you want as well. And little animations, so when the page loads, it can flip out or slide in. There's a whole lot to play with there. It really takes time just to familiarize yourself with them. Advanced is a little bit more advanced. So if you're someone who actually codes CSS, you can go in here and add CSS IDs and classes, because you can also pop CSS code into these areas, but sometimes you need to get a little bit more nitty gritty. So adding in IDs and classes can also help if you add CSS elsewhere on the website. And then little attributes, button relationship, so for your links, certain display conditions. So this is a little bit advanced, but you can choose. So if you're on a certain page, you can choose for this not to display. Probably something for another video. I'll actually touch on that when we go into the video on building the actual template for the site with the theme builder. Visibility, we can actually hide this on tablet and phone. So that way, if someone's on desktop, they can see this area, but if the viewport goes to the size of a tablet, it'll actually hide it. And if I actually only hide it on tablet, when it gets to phone, it'll reappear. So you can choose to actually hide modules or full sections, depending on what device size it's going to be on. Overflow is if any information goes outside of the box, it'll show it or hide it. That's why it has visible. So there's just a lot of bits and pieces. This is the how quick the transitions last for, which is the little animations we're looking at before. So now we're getting a little bit into the complicated stuff you're probably not going to be too concerned with. Z-index, if I crank that right up, that means nothing will appear over the top of it. If I crank it right down, it'll go below certain objects. And then of course there's scroll effects. I'm going to get into some of these in another video. For now, those are the basics of how to use the page builder for text. Now, moving on to images. As before, you simply click this area, choose your image, upload an image, and it will appear in the media library. And you can pick it, change your image around. You can still add backgrounds to your images. So if I have a transparent PNG, which I will actually pop on here, like this, transparent PNG, I can go to background and give it a background color. So you can add background colors to your images as well if you want to do that. Why you do that, I'm not sure, but it's an option and it's there if you want it. And then of course you can even add background images. You sort of get the idea. So you got the same background options and as before for your images. Design options, you can change the alignment a bit. The sizing, you can force it to be the full width of the column if it's a small image. Otherwise it will just shrink down to about that width. And of course you can change the maximum width and the alignment within that depending on where it lands. This is just for your basic sizing of the image within the space it sits in. And one thing I will also touch on is if you want to actually round corners, you can go to the border section and it has rounded corners there. So you can go, if we add in say 20 pixels, it'll round those corners, although the background image actually interferes with that. So I'll go back and change that image to show you what I mean. Sorry, image. Let's choose that one again. We'll go back to border. So you can see there's sort of rounded corners there because the image behind is showing through. If I put this right up to 100, you'll see it round even further. I can also turn this link off and make this one 0, make this one 1000, which is actually larger than the image itself, and get all sorts of effects with the image curve. So you got that, and of course you can add borders by changing the border width. So you can see, again, the same options in the design tab. Now that's going to give you everything you need to know to get started, pretty much, because now you know how to control the layout. You understand sections and how rows go into those sections to create columns and how you insert your modules into those columns. And of course, if you hover over the modules, you get another little grey plus box. So you can add even more modules in there. Things like videos, video sliders, tabs if you want a tabbed area. So you can add in little tabbed areas there. If you want to see that, I've actually got a video that touches on all of the modules in the Divi theme. If you want to check that out, I'll link to it in the description below. Now, the only other thing I will touch on very quickly. So before I mentioned, you can see what everything looks like on a phone or a tablet. So let's say we're not too happy with how this, what are we looking at? Let's say we're not too happy with how this looks on a phone. So I'm going to go into these settings here, go to design, and just for a bit of fun, I'm going to go to button number 1, so we can use it as a comparison. Now we're using the default styling for button 1, so I'm going to turn that on so we can style it. Now the button 1 text size, if I hover over this and choose the mobile option, I can change the size. And I can do this in just about every single area of basically the customizer and all the settings here. So at the moment on phone it's smaller. So I go back to tablet, it goes to normal, desktop it goes to normal, back to phone, it goes small. So that's just a demonstration of if you're having trouble with certain areas within this. So this text area here, I can actually go in, and where it has background, I can even change the, go down up here, sorry. Go into this FullWidth header module. I can even go into background, hover over the background tab, click phone, and now I have the desktop, tablet, and phone options. And I can give this a different background for the phone if I want to. So we'll give it this sand image. So now if I click tick, you'll see on the desktop we have the leaves panel, we have the leaves, and on the phone we have the dirt. So in pretty much all of your options, you can go through and choose to change the settings either for desktop, tablet, or phone. So if you're really looking to get everything 100% optimized for smartphones, that's another really handy part of the builder. Now, of course, as I said, when we're ready, we'll click save or publish, and we're good to go. So that's pretty much covering the basic concepts of how the builder works. There's a lot more to learn, and I intend on going in depth with a lot more videos, and I've already got a few videos on the channel too. So do check out, I'm going to link to a playlist below, and it has all of the videos I have for Divi there. So check that out if you need any more. Otherwise, this video is a part of a series, and we're going to go on and do some more stuff next. So and slowly piece together how to use the Divi theme to build a website. So again, any resources, check out the link in the description below. Otherwise, check out the videos in the video card. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.